guys, welcome back to another cult movie review with me, Bo, here on the Film Scene Investigation channel. I hope everyone is doing good. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the 2006 Michael Mann movie, Miami Vice. So, I should start by saying, first and foremost, I love the original Miami Vice TV show that aired back in the 1980s. I wasn't born when the show aired originally, but back in the early 2000s I managed to obtain a DVD box set of the whole 5 seasons and instantly became a fan. I've seen all 111 episodes of the show, so without sounding too egotistical, I guess I kind of consider myself a die-hard fan of the show. I know all about the storylines, the actors, the characters, all the show's history. So when it came to the 2006 movie adaptation, my expectations were pretty high. But after watching the film, I must say, it really disappointed me. So after seeing it, I pretty much lost interest quite quickly and tried to pretend that it didn't exist. And then a few months ago, I ended up revisiting the film for the first time in over a decade. This time around, I was able to get my hands on the extended edition director's cut, basically a longer version with an alternative opening. I had heard about this additional footage and alternative opening, but I'd never seen it before. This extended version, I believe, was released back in 2008 in the American markets, but there was no special extended edition for Europe, i.e. Region 2. So the likes of me missed out on watching this extended cut. So lucky for me, I was able to get my hands on it, watched it, and that will be the version I will be reviewing today. Written and directed by the legendary Michael Mann, actors Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx starred as vice cops Sonny Crockett and Ricardo Tubbs. Both actors were arguably at the height of their careers, with Jamie Foxx having just won an Oscar for the movie Ray. Colin Farrell had found success at the box office with films like Minority Report and Phone Booth, which made him an established leading man. I thought the actor Jamie Foxx was more suited to play Ricardo Tubbs compared to Colin Farrell playing Sonny Crockett. Foxx had that natural charisma that he brought to the character. When it comes to Colin Farrell, he is an Irish actor playing a character that is originally from the Deep South. And that was definitely a challenge for him. For the most part, I thought that Farrell did okay, but the gruff, deep voice that he decided to use, that was a bad idea. Michael Mann was one of the central figures behind creating the Miami Vice television show for NBC back in 1984. He would go on to serve as executive producer for the whole of the 5 seasons. Having Michael Mann come back all these years later, this time as a director, was definitely a very intriguing aspect to the production. When it came to the show, Michael Mann had involved himself with some of the writing duties, but he'd never actually directed an episode. I mean, that would have been pretty amazing if Michael Mann had taken the helm as director, but he was sadly too busy with projects like Manhunter back in 1986. Years later, while working on the 2004 movie Collateral, Michael Mann discussed the potential possibility of a film adaptation with Jamie Foxx. The talks would ultimately lead to the Miami Vice movie getting greenlit by Universal Studios. So, let's run down some of the story here for a moment. Crockett and Tubbs are tasked to go undercover as high-level drug dealers, travel to Colombia in an effort to bring down the cartel leader Jose Hierro, played by actor John Ortiz. But once their mission began, they realized that Hierro was simply just a middleman, and the real drug lord was Jesus Montoya, played by actor Luis Tosar. Montoya was skeptical from the get-go about Sonny and Rico's abilities, and so he gave them a test run. If Sonny and Rico were successful, then more opportunities would basically come their way. Separately to all of this, there was also a love story going on between Crockett and the character Isabella, played by actress Gong Li. Isabella was Montoya's lover and heavily involved in his drug operation. What started out as a simple flirtation soon turned into something more between Crockett and Isabella. But their lustful affair would only start to jeopardize their lives as the undercover operation escalated. I will say, I thought both actors, Gong Li and Colin Farrell, had pretty decent on-screen chemistry together. It didn't seem forced, it felt somewhat natural, even though to a certain extent you had to question Isabella's motives, the fact that she was getting involved with Sonny when obviously she was Montoya's lover. While I didn't think their relationship was all that interesting to the story, I did appreciate the fact that Michael Mann inserted some Crockett love story drama into the film. In the original series, Sonny had several love interests, one of which included his co-worker Gina Calabrese. Many of these flings that Crockett had basically only led to heartbreak, but they did make for some great episodes. Michael Mann carrying over that tradition of Crockett having a love interest and adding that into the film was indeed a nice touch. Now, the majority of the movie was heavily based on the Miami Vice Season 1 episode Smuggler's Blues. From the undercover mission to Trudy's abduction and rescue, it was pretty much copy and pasted, but sadly to a more subpar level. Now, while I do have a lot of negatives for the film, and we'll get to that in a few moments, I do want to praise the movie's opening 20 minutes. It began with an eye-opening sequence which involved Crockett and Tubbs boat racing across the bay. There were some lovely visuals of the speedboats racing across the ocean, while music from composer John Murphy played out as the race progressed. The track featured this bluesy guitar riff which sounded similar to the type of material we heard from musician Tim Truman in Season 5 of Miami Vice. The boat sequence was reminiscent of the Season 1 episode The Great McCarthy, which also involved a boat race. Now, up until very recently, I'd never seen this boat sequence before, and yeah, straight up, I really enjoyed it. Simply because, it definitely felt kind of like Miami Vice. It's hard to put into words, but I don't know, it's like the spirit of the show was there. I mean, this was a vastly improved opening, which should have been included in the original theatrical version. After the boat race, we were transported to a flashy nightclub scene where the whole of the team at OCB were investigating a pimp called Neptune. This location was very similar to your standard nightclub setting with a busy dance floor and strobe lighting. A realistic depiction of what Miami nightlife had become in the early 2000s. A fight broke out on the dance floor that saw both Crockett and Tubbs subdue two henchmen of Neptune's. While everything played out accordingly, I couldn't help but think of Michael Mann's previous film, Collateral, where a similar fight took place on a dance floor. This then led to a scene involving Crockett and Tubbs atop the club's rooftop speaking to their informant over the phone. You had the Miami Tower located in the background as the two detectives tried to keep their informant calm. All of this was great stuff. Yes, it was a different time. Yes, the 80s were over. But the opening of the movie showed a lot of potential in what could have been an epic crime story. But as the story continued, I thought things became very muddled and the poor editing choices didn't help either. The acting remained solid, so I can't fault that, but that wasn't really enough to keep my interest. And so, dislikes for Miami Vice 2006. First and foremost, I have a lot of dislikes that I want to discuss. I'll try to lean more on the positives than the negatives. But yeah, bottom line, this was a letdown. So yeah, let's get into it. I guess we could start with the film's overall look and Michael Mann's use of the digital HD TV format. The Miami Vice movie featured this digital, grainy quality that was sadly present in many of Michael Mann's projects at the time. Mann had started using digital cameras for the majority of his film projects, with the idea that it would capture more of a realistic atmosphere. It certainly was a unique approach, and I definitely appreciated Mann's eagerness to innovate. It's just, when it comes to Miami Vice, this was a movie that should have retained its film-like qualities like the TV show had. Michael Mann's original concept for the show was to produce a high-quality episode of television each week. It was a key element that set Miami Vice apart from all the other TV shows at the time. So it's ironic in a way that the same guy behind the show would be the one advocating the use of digital technology all these years later. Don't get me wrong, the use of the digital photography absolutely can work, and it did in Michael Mann's previous movie, Collateral. But here, in this movie, in Miami Vice, I don't know, it felt jarring. The night footage we saw, in particular, gave off a very realistic vibe to the film. It just wasn't Miami Vice. Another thing I have to say is that the film's colour palette was way off. I mean, the original TV show was known for its vibrant colours and visual style. Mann, this time around, decided to take a different approach and delivered a more dialed down variation, which I basically hated. I mean, in the original series, the vibrant colour scheme was one of the key attractions to the show. From the wardrobe to the set design, it was all aesthetically pleasing and contributed to the show's overall vibe. So when it comes to the film, this aspect was completely lost. Yes, the film did showcase some good cinematography here and there, but nothing compared to what the TV show offered. Bottom line, besides the boat sequences, I would say that there's nothing really visually appealing that would make anyone want to go back and rewatch it. Another fundamental reason why the original TV show was so successful was due to the close bond that Crockett and Tubbs shared. Both Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas were a great duo that worked perfectly together on screen. Episodes like The Maze or Tale of the Goat really showcased the strong bond Sonny and Rico had. The actors made the audience care about their on-screen friendship. But in the film, there seemed to be a serious lack of partnership camaraderie between them. This might sound strange, but it almost seemed as if Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx were never really comfortable around each other. It was almost like the two actors were jockeying over who could be the toughest no-nonsense detective. Their lack of on-screen chemistry was a major letdown, considering that Michael Mann was the man in charge. Yes, visually the actors looked the part, there's no doubt about that. And, individually they did well in their roles. But together, Crockett and Tubbs in this film, they seemed like a mismatch. It wasn't terrible, and in some cases it was okay. But compare this to the original partnership that we saw in the show, it lacked some serious magic. Another important aspect of the show's popularity was its style and fashion choices. The show literally paved the way for the mid to late 80s fashion trends. Unlike other television shows, it mattered what these characters wore on screen, especially the wardrobe of Sonny Crockett. But the film seriously lacked in that department, and yet again was a major letdown. Now, in fairness, at the start of the film, I did like the stylings of both Crockett and Tubbs, especially Crockett's grey suit and black shirt combo. The ensemble was clearly inspired by Crockett's season 3 style with the more darker colours and less use of pastels. I thought it worked perfectly, and this is the direction Michael Mann should have taken with Crockett's look for the film. Unfortunately, as the movie went on, both Crockett and Tubbs' fashion choices failed to meet expectations. Now, I'm not saying that Crockett had to wear the infamous white suit. I understand that, Michael Mann was going for a more modern approach, but even I could have done a better job styling the actors. I'm sorry, but it's true. The fashion was a key element to the show. Michael Mann knows this. So what happened? I just don't understand why the whole fashion, set design, everything like that, it kind of was treated like an afterthought. Why? Because it's those aspects that the, real fans of the show would want to see, and man, major letdown. And it's even more of a letdown because Michael Mann was the guy in charge. He should know better. He was the one that created this. Even now, gets me pissed off, man. God, what was he thinking? I have a few more little nitpicks here and there, but overall that was my dislikes for the film. And yeah, it's just hard to get your head around the fact that Michael Mann, the guy that created that magic to begin with, ended up producing such a diluted, weak version years later. And so, ratings for Miami Vice 2006. I'm going to be rating this movie a strong 4 out of 10. Look, to be completely honest, this isn't a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It was a good story with some nice action mixed in. Fundamentally, the biggest issue this movie has is the fact that it was labelled Miami Vice. Make no mistake, if this movie was given a completely new title, I'd be giving it more praise. Once someone tags a synonymous title like Miami Vice to their project, automatically any audience would have their own expectations on what to expect. I generally feel that Michael Mann should have just created a completely new original story and not used any Miami Vice connection. The name Miami Vice, to this day, holds significance. To take the name and present something so different to the original concept, it was a bad idea. You know, as I said, it was a solid start with the speedboats and Crockett and Tubbs conducting business on a rooftop car park. But soon after that, it just got really boring. I just didn't feel invested with the plot. And I think that ultimately comes down to the fact that I just didn't really care about this version of the characters. The show had this lightning in a bottle. It's hard to describe, but if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. It was dark, it was bleak, and it wasn't very fun. Now, if you guys have seen this movie adaptation but never seen the original TV show, I highly recommend you do. Especially season 1, 22 episodes of epic 80s crime drama that you definitely need to watch. So yeah, that's my review. I know some people love this film, some people really hate it. I'm leaning towards the hate. I don't want to be negative, but I guess I kind of thought that as the years have progressed, it would have got better over time, but the film still annoys me. And yeah, Michael Mann, what was he thinking, eh?